Welcome to the Get Real Podcast, your high-octane boost of in the trenches, tell it like it is reality therapy for personal, business, and real estate investing success. With your hosts, powerpreneurs, Angela Thomas and Ron Phillips. It's time to get real.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Get Real podcast, where we're going to get real about actually real estate today, but we do real estate, we do business, we do life, and we speak real about it. You can find us at getrealestatesuccess.com. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you share us with all of your friends, all that good stuff. With me today is Heather Marchant. Welcome, Heather.
Hello. Thank you.
She's been on the team for, we just figured the numbers out. It's 13 years. 13 years. Unbelievable. Yep. She knows so much, and so she's a powerhouse as far as the team is. Anybody who's listening to this has done any business with our company knows Heather. And so we're going to talk about real estate today. Heather, are you super pumped about this?
I am super pumped because you've helped me be passionate about this over the last 13 years pretty quick. So I love it.
We're going to talk about something every now and again. I used to do this thing called Ron Rants, and Heather, well, I think a lot of people are. Occasionally I get pissed off. You guys who are listening already know this because I probably did that last week, but we're going to do it again today. Now, I'm not so fired up today, Heather, but this is really important. We're going to talk about today because this is people are passionate one way or the other on this topic, and
sure.
What fueled this was a discussion on a friend of mine's Facebook page, crazy enough, where they were talking about mortgages and whether you should get a 15-year mortgage, a 20-year mortgage, a 30-year mortgage. And there's no way we could talk about all the different kinds of mortgages because, Heather, there's
a lot.
It's
just the more mainstream. Yeah.
So because of that Facebook post, and there was some really pointed discussion on this Facebook post about this. Let's just talk through the difference in these, and interrupt me if I miss some stuff,
okay,
Heather. But you spend a lot of time talking to and coaching our clients about this stuff, and they ask about it. People tell me I should get a 20-year mortgage, or they tell me I should get a 15-year mortgage because I want to pay this thing off really fast. And
I have clients that tell me I don't like debt. Like, it makes me feel nervous or, anxious that I'm taking on more debt in purchasing rental property. So
interestingly enough, one of the people on there said, no loan. What are you talking about? Pay cash.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Yep.
Absolutely nothing wrong with paying cash. But a lot of people can't do that right now. And some people, like me, just don't want to do that because I can buy more properties if I leverage them, right? And it works better for return on investment, everything else. Okay, so we've kind of flogged that horse before. Let's talk about the difference between these loans. And I know you've got some examples, and I just want to share something that's super simple so that everybody can understand this. And this is going to be a little harder for people to follow. So if I go too fast, Heather, just interrupt me and say, yeah, but you forgot about this piece, whatever. So we're going to keep this exactly the same. $100,000 property, putting 20% down. So it's a single family home, super simple, right? Not going to go into all the cash flow numbers or anything like that. We're just going to talk about loans, period. Okay. So if I get a 20-year mortgage on an $80,000, now, if you do a 20-year mortgage, you're going to get a better interest rate. And I didn't check with our lender today, but Heather, you're really involved in our rates because you're constantly doing this all the time. I chose 4.25. Is that a pretty accurate rate for a 20-year? Okay,
that'd be pretty accurate.
And right now, a 30 years running what?
Closer to 5.
Yeah, so like 4.875 to 5, somewhere in there. Now, obviously, this stuff depends on the day, guys. But what are the other things, Heather? I mean, between a 20-year and a 30-year mortgage, the down payment doesn't change, right? Mm-mm. It's still 20%.
Your interest rates are a little different. but so is the term is going to be a little different. So you have the fixed portion on a 30-year loan is going to be fixed for 30 years. And sometimes you can have loans that have a shorter term fixed. If we're talking about a 20-year fixed, then you're paying off the loan over 20 years versus 30.
Yeah. So in the example on my buddy's Facebook post, it was a 10-year term, right? So in 10 years, you're going to have a balloon. And some people were asking about that. We'll get into that a little bit later about what happens after 10 years. Does the rate adjust? And there's 3, 5, 7, 10-year terms. That's pretty generally what banks will do, right? Mm-hmm. So we're not completely apples to apples here, because the 20-year mortgage that we're talking about legitimately probably isn't a 20-year term. It's probably max a 10-year term, where the other one is legitimately it's fixed for 30 years. Yeah. So just in the payment amount, there's not a ton of difference. Okay. So the payment on the 20-year would be like $495, and the payment on the 30-year would be $422. Okay. So we're roughly just a little over $70 difference on these two loans. So it's not really it's not a crazy amount. But in a return on investment, that can be several percentage points, right, of return.
Especially on a single family,
Yeah, depending on what you're getting in rent. So there's a bunch of different things that we need to talk through. And I don't want to get this completely jumbled up and really confuse everybody. But to maximize return on investment on a monthly basis or on an annual basis, you would go for the 30-year loan. So
all day long.
And you read through this post. I mean, there was people on there like, but you're paying way more interest. And that's true. If you actually carry this thing out 30 years, you're going to pay a ton more interest than you would on a 20-year loan.
Yeah.
Fair? That's absolutely true. Then somebody else chimes in and says, but you're not really paying it. Your tenant's paying it. And well, that's a fair point too, right? But your tenant's paying it on the 20-year. So I don't know that I don't think that's fair, because the tenant's paying it on both, right? So you're either going to pay more interest or you're going to pay less interest, period.
Yeah.
Now we preach cash flow. And there's a few reasons for that, Heather, but what are some of the really important reasons why we want to maximize cash flow on a monthly and on an annual basis?
Oh, I have a lot to say about that. So,
man.
Well, you have, number one, you want to have cushion in case you have maintenance or unexpected issues with the property, right? Vacancies. You're reducing your cash flow means that you're not going to have as much in reserve to cover those expenses. You're dumping that into the equity in the house, basically, and not able to recoup that directly. That would be my first answer.
And that's a really important one I think people overlook, right? They're like, well, the property's going to cash flow anyway, a few bucks on a 20-year. So what difference does it make? Well, it makes a big difference if your HVAC goes out.
Yep.
And then somebody's going to say, well, but if you're buying a rehab property, then that stuff's not going to go wrong. And if you get a home warranty, then you're probably okay. Well, on most everything you are, but if you have a vacancy last couple months, you're done. Like there's no more cash flow for that year.
Yes.
Right.
And you're dipping into your own pockets, and you have the money tied up in, the balance on the mortgage, basically, that you can't really access in case of an emergency. But that's just one of the more conservative approaches too. You also have money that is not invested in anything. It's not really giving you much yield. And so if you are putting more money into the mortgage every month, then you can't invest that and get that to give you a rate of return as well.
It's certainly a lot harder to get it back out of there. We talk about that, right? When we talk about return on equity, because if you've got a ton of equity sitting in the property and it's not doing anything, and your largest asset is sitting in these properties, then you're not effectively utilizing that money to make you more money.
Yes.
Right? There's nothing wrong with having 10 or 20 or 30 paid off houses. That's not what we're saying. But if you're in growth mode and you're trying to grow as much as you can, you've got to have all of your money needs to be working. It can't be just sitting there dead. Yeah. And that's exactly what it's doing when you're putting it into the property. But I think one of the other really fair points here on this that maybe kind of got glossed over in what both of us just said is that if you put the money, if it's a 20-year mortgage, your payment's locked in. It's not like you can just say, this month I don't want to pay the extra 70.
Yeah.
I just need to reduce that down. So let's say we go through another downturn in our economy and your job goes away all of a sudden. And then your tenant moves out and you have to do a turn your property, and you no longer have the extra money to make that happen. That it's really cool when the market is good and when the economy's good and everything's great. It sounds like such a great plan to go with a 20-year mortgage until it isn't a great plan anymore.
Yeah.
Right. And we're not maximizing the cash flow. It can turn into a really sticky situation.
And then the other thing too is if you have a downturn in the economy and you want to pull the cash out of the property, last time in the last economic downturn, lending was really tough. You couldn't get a loan. You couldn't maybe even refinance a property as well. So in dire straits, maybe you'd say, I'll just take the equity, but that may not be accessible at that point. In the last downturn, my husband was in grad school and we couldn't qualify. We had the cash to buy a house and we wanted to buy a house and we couldn't qualify. So even though
there were a lot of people with home equity lines of credit that got shut down immediately. Just overnight, money's gone. Can't have access to it anymore. I mean, that's a really good point, because when you're in crisis, the last thing you want is to have to go begging to the bank to readjust your mortgage because you made a really stupid decision up front because you thought everything was going to be rosy on your property forever and in the economy. So let's keep in mind that even if you got a decent cash flow on a 20-year mortgage, there may be a time in your life where you kind of need that thing to take care of itself and maybe even provide a little bit. Right. So, and here's the other thing that I was thinking about, like, what stops me if I have a 30-year mortgage from just making extra payments? And what's the net difference between me getting a 30-year mortgage and making extra payments?
Yeah. I go online and use mortgagecalculator.org all the time to look at that, right? How fast
funny
can
you should say that, because I actually did do this, right? Feeling a little prepared for the conversation today, I went and did this. So we have these two payments, right? We were about $70 off. So I thought, well, let's just see what the net difference is. And let's see what the downside is to getting a 30-year loan. Because most investors I know, Heather, they don't actually keep the properties for 30 years.
No, I don't know any.
Almost everybody is selling or cash out refinancing or doing something that alters their loan, right? But I kind of agree with Warren Buffett when he said, this is in effect a way to short the dollar. When you can lock in money at, somewhere between 4.5% and 5%, I mean, when the rates go up, because they inevitably will. Somebody on the post was like, rates are going to be fine. Historically, rates aren't really that high. And we really don't have a problem with inflation. Well, everybody thought that too until the 80s. And then interest rates went up to, at their peak, they were at 18%. So, the person who has their property locked in for 10 years, I hope you've paid a ton down.
Yeah.
Reality is, according to the amortization schedule, you've paid roughly $30,000 down. You still owe $50,000 on that property. And so you've got to refinance or sell or do something. And, you don't know what the market's going to be. You don't know what the interest rates are going to be. No one has any idea 10 years from now what things are going to be. So if you can lock it in for 30 years, and during the last downturn too, Heather, what happened to rental rates?
Yeah, rental rates went up.
They went up.
Yeah.
Okay, so
people like me couldn't buy, right?
Yeah,
so
that's right. So we take this exact same property, we put it on a 30-year mortgage. The interest rate is higher, right? So, this is counterintuitive, but you're going to pay more interest. You're going to pay it for longer, which means you're going to pay more interest. But if I just pop in there that extra $70 difference between the 20-year and the 30-year, I get this thing's paid off completely in 22 years.
Yeah. It's a
There's-
no-brainer.
There's literally almost no difference here. And interestingly enough, in the 22nd year, I'm only paying off $621. So really, it gets paid off in 21 years, just over 21 years.
And you have the flexibility, that flexibility you don't have with the 20-year. You have to make your mortgage payment. You could pay extra on a 30. So
it's so important, And look, if you're hell bent on paying your property off, but you want the flexibility of having access to the money as you're paying it down, there are other creative loan options that you can use. I mean, there are these home equity line of credit that's a first. I don't know if you've heard of these, Heather, but it's a first mortgage. It's a home equity line of credit, and you use it basically as a bank account.
Yeah,
right.
Like all in one.
Now, the interest rate on that you pay is even higher than the one that I just quoted you.
Yeah.
But the reality is that if you're using it as a bank and you're dumping money into it and paying the principal down every single month, the numbers work out in your favor, right? So there's several different options that you can do here. And if you really just want to pay your house off, but you don't want to completely isolate yourself from your money and your cash flow, maybe I'm missing something, Heather, but I can't see why anyone would not do a 30-year loan.
Yeah, I think sometimes when people look at the 20, they're not looking at the full picture of why the 30 makes more sense. All the reasons we talked about. And the all-in-one mortgage is pretty cool. It's expensive up front. I actually just barely ran numbers on my own primary residence for it. And just doing nothing different, just keeping my income and expenses coming out of the mortgage instead of out of my checking account, my house will be paid off in, I think it was 2 or 3 years.
That's psychotic.
I know.
And maybe we should do. Listen, if you guys are interested in hearing more about that loan program, maybe I can. I can get somebody to come on and actually talk about it, because it is really powerful. Now you have to be with that particular one, not to completely jump the shark here, but in order to make that one work, you have to be like Heather, right? Not like Ron. You have to be like Heather. In that you got to have your crap all dialed in, and you have to work off of a budget, and you have to have X amount left over every month so that you're paying down constantly, right? You can't be like, oh, hell, I've got $50,000 I paid down. Let's go to Europe. Like Ron. You can't do that. This is a bad loan product for people who have a really hard time managing their funds. So my wife and I don't know that I've actually ever said this on the show or not, but Heather knows this.
Yeah.
My wife and I are both spenders. Now she's way better than me, but we're both spenders.
Do you mean a better spender? Like she's better at spending?
Yeah, well, that's on certain things, there's no question. But she's actually better at not spending than I am. But we're both spenders. So we're spender, where you're supposed to be spender saver. And that really is not a good combination unless you make a lot of money, which thank God I do. So we do okay. But man, and I don't know if you knew this or not, but spender can talk each other into getting nearly anything.
I've seen that with you guys.
Yeah.
It's impressive.
It's a sickness. It really is.
Well, we're savers. So our problem is people telling us that we need to spend money. We're like, oh yeah, that's true. We should do that. That's true.
You should enjoy it.
Lighten up
you should
a
enjoy
bit.
some of the money. So let's talk through one more thing that was on that thread. And that was fees. And I think the real problem, the reason that this came up, was because the broker that had given the client this loan, I mean, they really charged him a lot of money. I think that was the main problem. If you actually want to boil it all down, they were like, why would you pay all of these fees when a local bank will give you a loan and you don't have hardly any fees? Let's talk about the difference between a bank and a broker real quick, Heather, and kind of the difference in fees that we've seen over the years, because it can be astronomical, the difference.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the lender we work with is a Fannie Freddie lender, so he's going to sell the note after, but the rates and terms and stuff are pretty tight. I mean, you can't really have a lot of leeway, and he has a very low lender fee that he charges. And so very, very few times does it make sense for our clients to pay origination because his rates are already really competitive. So in the end, closing costs on a single family home are mostly, I would say 50% of the cost is usually your escrows, your taxes and your insurance, and maybe, some of your title fees in there too. It's not the lender fee that's most of it. So a single family home.
Yeah, no,
go ahead.
that doesn't hold true for everybody in this particular case. So one of the comments that I made on this thread was, you're just using the wrong person, period. End of story. Right? If they're charging you 2.5 points on your origination fee, plus a whole bunch of other junk fees to close a loan, you're just getting bent over. I mean, there's no other way to put it. You're just getting screwed. And that was the point of this. He's going, man, because my local bank, they'll give you a 20-year loan and the interest rate's going to be less and the fees are going to be less. But there's a difference. The lender that we use, Heather, he is at a bank. Yeah. Right? But he's at a bank that also does business with Fannie Mae, right? So they can sell these loans, these 30-year loans off to Fannie Mae. Exactly. But he gets to charge bank rates, and they get better rates anyway because they do more volume. Just their par rates are better. And then they don't have to charge the same amount of money as a broker does. Yeah. So it's kind of the best of both worlds. So, I mean, if you were going to tell your clients or anybody listening, what do we need to do? We just need to go through a bank. You can use a local bank sometimes, depending on the deal, but we use one lender that's nationwide so that you can purchase across the country and not get pre-approved over and over again. Our focus with our clients is mostly growing a portfolio over time. So working with one lender is super convenient, where our clients are professionals and have a job and this isn't their full-time gig. So the 30-year fixed is perfect for rental properties. It's almost like it was made for it. It's perfect. Yeah. I mean, it just, guys, so main thrust of this is a few things, right? You need to choose a bank, not a broker. And if you are choosing a broker, just make sure you're not getting screwed on fees. Okay. Yeah. And just, shop it a little bit. When you do that, though, if you don't know, there's a massive difference between a regular loan, retail loan that you're buying for yourself, and investment property. They're completely different animals, right? So, don't go tell your mortgage broker that you can get a rate under 4 on an investment property, because you can't. You cannot do that. So don't lie to him. Everybody already knows you can't. Okay. Interest rates are pretty much what Heather and I said they were. So go to a bank or go to a broker that charges reasonable fees, and a reasonable fee is what, 1% or less? Yeah. Yeah. And then, man, get a 30-year loan, because if you want to pay it off, you can pay it off. But if life throws you a curveball, then you get the choice of paying the extra 70. Exactly. Choice is always better, and having the cash and flexibility. I was telling Ron, I have a client. It's a husband and wife, Jerry and Sharon. They listen to this podcast religiously. Well, hey, so I'll get a text message from them when they listen to this. But I spoke with them yesterday. A lease came in lower than our pro forma. And when that happens, we require the seller to make a concession of some kind. It's not always the same every time. So we negotiate. So the lease was fairly low. And so they said, look, we have wiggle room of $14,000, Heather. You tell us what's going to work for the client. So when I initially talked with the client via email and presented the options, they said, lower the price. So I got on the phone yesterday and I said, look, if we look at the math, we can lower the price a couple $1,000s, and you can pocket $11,000 in different incentives. So with those conventional loans, you are limited to 2% of the purchase price as incentives. So I knew that. So we capped that out at 2%. And then I said, okay, let's prepay property management for 2 years. In that situation, they know they're part of the business is the property management company. So that's flexible for them. And then they also were willing to pay the difference in the lease for 2 years as well. So all of those incentives combined were $11,000. And I said, let's not lower the purchase price, because you're leveraging. You're only saving 20% upfront of whatever price reduction we have. This way, you have $11,000 in your pocket. And it's kind of the same concept we've been talking about, is having the money in your pocket and the flexibility that offers.
versus taking it in the mortgage and that being your only savings. So in the end, she said, well, yeah, that makes perfect sense. And so did her husband. And we said, okay, well, let's get some addendums together. And so they are only lowering the price $3,000 instead of the $14,000.
Yeah, and all the rest of that money goes to them in the form of cash flow or cash in your pocket or reduced amount of money that you have to bring to closing. Yeah, that's fantastic. Exactly. Congratulations to you two, for sure. That's awesome.
Well, and along with the mortgage part, though, I guess I didn't explain this piece. So it saves them $46 a month to lower the purchase price by that $14,000. And if we do the math, it would take them almost just shy of 20 years to be able to save that $11,000 to get it back. So it means that, they got it all up front instead of over a period of 20 years.
And in addition to that, I think on this deal, you told me earlier that they just kind of screwed the lease up. It's not even that the lease rate should be there, right? So they're going to get a bump in rent on top of all of this stuff.
Yep.
Because they screwed the lease up. So, I mean, really, really cool. Congratulations to you two. It's sometimes it's really frustrating when things don't go exactly like they should, which almost always happens in real estate for some reason. It's a complicated business. But sometimes it can work out in your favor when things get a little bit messed up and a little bit messy. Yeah. So that's really good.
Totally.
So man, when you guys are out there looking for loans, just make sure that you understand all the ramifications and don't just take one person's word for it, right? That you should do something. Because I think this guy in his post, when he was really frustrated mostly about all the fees these people were paying.
Yeah.
But it altered and said, hey, look, you should just use this local bank. And we use that local bank. They're really a really, really good bank to work with. Mm-hmm. But we usually use them for weird situations and crazy loan products and stuff like that normal people can't get, or that normal properties can't get, or something like that, where you cannot beat a Fannie Mae loan. No. You just cannot beat that thing right now. And so why try?
Exactly.
There's no point. Just man. And then be really careful about how much money you pay down, right? Just be careful about it, because you never know when you need that money in your pocket, right? And I hope this was helpful. So if this was helpful, and if you guys want to learn a little bit more about the all-in-one mortgage product, just shoot us a message, make a comment. Everybody should like this anyway, right? Because that's the nice thing to do.
Yeah, we're so likable.
Yeah, and then share it with everybody. It was Heather's first time on the show, right? Nice. Yeah. So we'll bring her back. We'll do some more shows with her. She's got a wealth of knowledge, especially about what just goes on in the day-to-day of helping all of these thousands of clients that we help to acquire rental properties all over the country, and the management and all the things that goes along with it. The good, the bad, the ugly.
All day. Love it.
Heather can seriously help us get real on this show. So we're excited to have you here. Excited for all of you guys to listen. Go look us up. GetRealEstateSuccess.com. Subscribe to the podcast. You can find our main company at rpcinvest.com. You can look that up as well. There's some really cool education over there as well. And we're really grateful that you guys are listening. So don't keep us a secret. Thanks, everybody. Till next time.
Thanks.
This has been the Get Real Podcast. To subscribe and for more information, including a list of all episodes, go to GetRealEstateSuccess.com.